throughout my career, I've been very proactive about what I wanted, about salary and about roles and all that. It wouldn't happen if I was just sitting and waiting for someone to hand me on a silver platter the next role or promotion and all that. You cannot just sit and wait for someone to realize that you're doing a good job. You have to constantly advocate for yourself and push for what you want.
Are you at a crossroads in your career? Ready for a change, but you're not sure how to get there? Don't worry. We are about to produce your best life together. Welcome to the Second Act Success podcast. I am your host, Shannon Russell. I am a former television producer turned boy mom. I left my dream job to find family balance, and in doing so, I produced my dream life. Now I am a business owner, podcaster, and career coach. My mission is to help other women like you find what they are truly meant to be doing. If you are ready to start over in your career or pivot to a new purpose, then get ready to be inspired by stories of women who have done just that. We will share advice and actionable tips to motivate you as you move along on your path. It is time to shine, so let's start producing your balanced life of abundance today. This is Second Act Success. Do you know what it feels like to be the only woman in the room every day at work for 20 years? Limor Bergman Gross has broken the glass ceiling as a software engineer and a director of engineering. After being a female leader in the tech world for years, Limor now helps women find their strength in the boardroom and teaches them to break glass ceilings of their own. This is Limor and her Second Act Success story. Welcome to the podcast, Limor. How are you?
Great, Shannon. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to chat with you about your journey. You started in the world of engineering. Do you want to kind of talk to me about how you got into that field and kind of walk us through the beginning part of your story?
Absolutely. So I actually started in high school. So what happened was back in the days when I was still in high school, I won't reveal when it was, so you won't know how old I am.
Me either.
But back then, at least here in Israel, there was a distinction between someone who is good at math and science and STEM, basically, to someone who is good at humanities. And that distinction basically forced people to focus on STEM or humanities. And I think it's very unfortunate looking back. I was good at math, I was good at physics, chemistry, so I chose a very science-heavy focus in my high school and grew up thinking that that's all I can do. So I can only do things that are related to science, to STEM, etc. And I took a programming course in high school. And also after high school, I took another one just to try it out because it was like, and still is considered a very good profession, very high earning. And that's how I found myself in computer science. So I went to study computer science and accounting and started working on my third year already. So that's how I started my career as a software engineer.
That's incredible. I think it's really interesting. We had another guest on. Her name was Renetta Jenik, and she was from Israel as well. And she talked about the same thing, how she went into engineering and STEM in high school. And I don't think our high schools here in the United States have programs that are as vast as that, or at least none that I'm aware of at general public schools. So I think it's fantastic that you have those kind of concentrations that you can go into at the high school level. So tell me about your first job after college. You went into computer science?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, I was looking for a job in the summer between my second and third year. I wanted to start getting some experience. And I was interviewing, had some failures and had some successes. And eventually I chose to go to a company that offered to pay my tuition. Not necessarily my first choice, but because they offered to pay the tuition, it was an obvious choice. Okay, I should definitely go there. And to be honest with you, my first year there was not that great. I worked part-time. I hated the kind of job that they gave me. It was very ancient, kind of mainframe, COBOL work. It was very boring. I did not like my job for the first year, I'll tell you that. I still learned a lot. I learned a lot of SQL, which was useful later on. But overall, the experience was not that great. And I met some very nice people and I got some experience working. but the job itself was not great. And I guess I want to give a message here to our listeners that that's okay. Everything that happens to you, just figure out what are the good things that happened as a result of that. I know it's a lot of times very hard to look at things that we consider as, bad things that happen to us in a different lens, but it is important because I learned at least what I didn't want. And after that year, I went to the supervisor of my manager and I basically told him that I want to move to a different team. And I tried to be diplomatic. I told him that basically I didn't like what I was doing and I wanted to move to more modern things. Back then it was Java was a hype. It was relatively new language. And I said, I want to move to Java. And the good thing is that he believed in me and gave me the opportunity. So I did learn a lot of things, right? I learned how to stand up for myself early on in my career, how to know what I want, how to ask for what I want. So good things came out of it.
So then you went into this new department, and how was that? Was that a better team fit for you?
It was, on one hand, it was great, right? It was the latest and greatest, learning a lot, but it was very intimidating. I didn't know anything. I didn't know Java, and the whole team was men. Obviously, I worked most of my career predominantly with men. I was very intimidated. I felt insecure. So definitely it wasn't easy.
Especially in your young 20s at that time, right?
Yeah,
you're still young and you're figuring it out. And that is very intimidating. You're not with other women that you can pal around with, and you had to be on.
Yeah. Luckily for me, the people I worked with were great. Really a great group of people. They were very supportive, very caring. They wanted to help me. And the manager that I had was also a great person. So I was very lucky that I was working with people that were really understanding and supportive.
That's what you needed. Yeah. So how did your career kind of take off in the tech world after that?
So I worked at that company overall for 3.5 years. And I changed again after a year in that role. I changed to another team, even harder. I always wanted to stay on top of technology. Back then, I really wanted to learn as much as I could. And then eventually I figured that it's not the right place for me, this company. And I moved to work at Sun Microsystems, which was the holy grail for Java developer back then. And I worked there for 10 years. I started as a software engineer and grew eventually to become a manager. And after that, we moved to the US and I grew more as a leader and so forth.
Where did you work when you were here in the US?
So I started in a very old school company, in a storage company, and then I moved to VMware. And after that, I moved to DigitalOcean, which is back then was a 150 people startup.
Oh.
Now it's much larger. Yeah.
What was your role like? You were the director of engineering at this point?
Yes, I was promoted there while I was working there to a director of engineering. Responsible for the entire org to provide certainty in times of uncertainty, to provide direction, to think about a bigger picture, to think about strategy, to think about the roadmap. That was the main things. And obviously, there are a lot of challenges within the company, a lot of conflicts and stuff like that. So I had to deal with.
How long were you a director of engineering and kind of in that role?
Approximately 2 years. What happened to me, and it was a long process, it didn't happen overnight. I realized at some point in my career that there is more for me than just this. And I wasn't passionate necessarily about technology the same way that others were. That's what at least I noticed on myself. Other people were excited to go to tech conferences and learn all the latest and greatest. They read professional books and articles. And I wasn't that interested in that. I was more interested in people. I was interested in helping others grow. I was definitely interested in women in tech and supporting women. It took me several years. I realized that there is more to me than just that. Not that it was bad, not that I was doing a bad job, but I realized there was something else. It was just very, very difficult for me to get out of that cycle because it was good, it was comfortable, I was paid very well. So it was hard to break out of this. Over 20 years, I felt like, okay, I've been there, done that. I want to do something different.
And at that point, 20 years in, were you noticing more women coming into the industry, or were you still kind of the 1 in 100?
I don't know if 1 in 100, but definitely there are not a lot of women. If I had to guess, I would say 10 to 15% in engineering, not in HR or other, functions.
Right.
And the organization that I was leading, there was maybe 10%, 15% women there, and the rest were men. So definitely still male dominated, I would say. And I was trying to change that, by the way. That's how I kind of partnered with Power to Fly, which I also work with today. I figured that there's more for me, and I want to make an impact in areas where I'm passionate.
So then talk to me about wanting to finally take a step out of this role and try this something new that you were that was sitting on your heart that you were ready to explore.
I started mentoring in 2017. Just an organization called Plateau HQ reached out to me and said, hey, would you mentor? And I said, why not? And I noticed that I really enjoy mentoring, and I also bring a lot of value to other managers, not necessarily just women, but in general. And when we decided also, I lived in the US, and then we moved back. We decided to move back to Israel at the end of 2019. And I figured, well, I have an opportunity here because I'm moving countries anyway. I'll have to switch a job. Why don't I just stop working and then figure this out? Because I had no idea what I wanted to do exactly. I knew that I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what and how. So I decided to just take a step back. I needed to get out of this cycle and just, figure things out.
And your family was supportive of this change? Because that's a big change. If you were bringing in significant income to your family and now you were stepping back and moving countries and just kind of reestablishing yourself, that's a lot.
It's a lot, and it wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. My husband was very supportive. I'll be honest, financially, we took a big cut. We sacrificed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we realized that that's what I needed to do in order to be happy and fulfilled. And again, I look at life, sometimes you need to step back and look at a higher level. It's a larger perspective at life and not just at the moment. I said, okay, I worked in the tech industry for over 20 years. I made a lot of money. We had savings. So sometimes you just need to take a cut and step back, and eventually you get back. You know how it is. I mean, when you make changes like that, something has to give. You have to sacrifice something, and you cannot expect that in one day you'll be able to replace the income you had with another income, especially if you're going to a very uncertain path like me. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing.
No, you just knew you needed a change. It's important. I've gone through that as well. I left a very well-paying job to figure it out as well. And I think we're very privileged to be able to have partners that supported us during that change. Not everyone has that. So I acknowledge that that's a privilege for us to be able to do that and take a step back, both emotionally, mentally, just to be able to figure out what the next step is. Because you're right, it's definitely a larger overview. And I think ultimately we can stay in a role that we're not so happy in for the rest of our lives. But it is one life that we're given. So making that change and building it is so, so important. So it was kind of like a clean slate for you.
Yeah. So I started working with Power to Fly, and not very long after I left DigitalOcean. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I was in touch with their CEO and we talked, and she said, oh, I want to work with me. So I started working with them. I still do. It's, again, part-time consulting kind of basis. I'm very grateful for that because first of all, it allowed me to figure things out along the way. And also I'm doing something I'm passionate about, and I'm super aligned with Power to Fly's mission. So it's a great privilege. I figured out what I wanted. I started coaching, and things are starting to fall into place.
I know what Power to Fly is, but can you explain to our listeners kind of what that organization is? They are wonderful and they do so much good.
Yes, definitely. So Power to Fly mission is about supporting, upskilling, and connecting underrepresented talent to high-paying jobs to jobs in general, and also supporting employers, help them hire underrepresented talent and help them retain and become an inclusive working environment. And that's basically how I know them. I started working with them as a client because I wanted to hire. Back then, they were focused on women, on gender related, focus, but now it's broader. It's a broader mission. And I wanted to change the status quo. And many companies that want to do the same, they reach out to Power to Fly and we'll help them do that.
It's fantastic. So now you're working a little part-time there. You're starting to coach. So you're really moving towards becoming a mentor for women in tech?
Yeah, so I do different things. I work with Power to Fly. I coach, I mentor, and I also do different trainings. I have a collaboration with the local wonderful woman here. So I started doing workshops for presentation skills. So I do different things, and I help also women with their LinkedIn profile. This is another area where I have expertise. So I do different things and I really enjoy that. I enjoy wearing basically multiple hats and not just doing one thing. My overall mission is helping women gaining confidence in themselves and achieving their goals, whatever that may be. Helping them realize their potential, what is possible for them, and building a plan and executing upon it.
Fantastic. Hey, it's Shannon. If you are enjoying this podcast, then you will love my weekly newsletter. It's full of career advice, productivity tips, and of course, inspiring stories of women who have launched a new career that they love. Just go to secondactsuccess.co to sign up. Plus, you'll get the My Success Vision Board to help you with your 2023 planning as well. Now it's back to the episode. I've read that you want to help to continually tear down these ceilings that are challenges for women. And how do you feel like your work is kind of working towards that goal of making women more present in the workplace where they want to be?
Yeah, so what I do with the women I work with, I help them, first of all, realize what they want. And it sounds basic, but a lot of times what happens is that we tend to limit ourselves in our head about what is possible for us and not even allowing ourselves to even dream about what we want. We're just saying, oh, I'm here and that's what I can do. So I help them try to figure out what is possible for them, to realize what are their strengths by looking, at all the things that they have done until now, realize and that's how you build the confidence in yourself. When you look at your achievements, at what you have done, realize what they're passionate about, what they want to do, and how to make that a reality. I'm not saying it's easy, but a lot of times what happens is it can be even simple things as, transitioning to a different employer or trying to talk with your current manager about some changes. And usually I work with them and figure out, okay, what is stopping you? And a lot of time when I ask those questions, they look at me and say, well, actually nothing is stopping me. It's like just realizing that they can do it.
We get in our own way sometimes.
For sure. Yeah.
I love that because you went through that. You spoke to your manager at one point and said, can I change teams? You've been there and now you're helping them do it as well.
For sure. Throughout my career, I've been very proactive about what I wanted, about salary and about roles and all that. It wouldn't happen if I was just sitting and waiting for someone to hand me on a silver platter the next role or promotion and all that. I'm not saying that promotion doesn't happen for good people. They do. As a manager, I did that, obviously, but you cannot just sit and wait for someone to realize that you're doing a good job. You have to constantly advocate for yourself and push for what you want.
And Limor, I've realized in my prior career in the entertainment industry that a lot of times if you have a person in a position and they're really helping you, maybe they're an assistant, maybe they're a project manager, sometimes selfishly as the manager, you don't want to promote them because you need that person in that role. And I've been on the other side as well, where that you're ready to promote and that person just wants to keep you there. That's another example of how you need to be advocating for yourself and say, I understand that I'm doing great in this role, but that's why I deserve to move up or to move to this higher pay structure. It takes sometimes people to speak up for themselves, for the manager to realize. Otherwise, sometimes people will just keep you in that position because you're doing such a great job. Have you seen that in your experience?
Oh, believe me, I've experienced that firsthand. I was in a spot where it happened to me before I conceived my second child. I was at a point that I was so frustrated and I didn't know what to do because my manager was thinking of himself only, and everyone that reported to him were just tools for him to achieve what he wanted in his career. And I really wanted to have a second child, and I was debating whether I should just focus on switching a job or to expand my family. Today, I think employers are more open to hiring women that are planning a child or even pregnant already. But back then, it wasn't that obvious that it's possible, and pregnancy could become a blocker.
Absolutely.
Eventually, I chose family first, and then after my second child was born, I moved to a management position. But I've been in situations where I was used.
That's interesting. I never really thought about it as being used, but you're right. That's really what it is. It's making the other person's job easier because you're doing so well in your role. Why is it women who kind of find themselves in these positions maybe more so than men?
I think there are multiple reasons. First of all, I think women in general, I'm highly generalizing, suffer from less confidence. And also they are more hesitant to come and ask for things. On the other hand, employers on their side sometimes can perceive a woman that is asking for a raise or, for something as aggressive versus a man that it will be natural for them that a man would come and demand something. And sometimes I've seen women that are naturally being used as a note taker. There's some bias, right, around women. And if there's a group of people and there's a woman, the woman will be the note taker. The woman will do, organize the meeting and all that. And there's some bias there. And we have to fight back. So it's a combination of things. What I'm trying to do when I work with those women is change their behavior because we cannot control everything. Yes, we need also to make sure that employers become a more inclusive place. And that's, part of the work that Power to Fly is doing. But first we need to look at ourselves and what we are doing to change our situation. And if we're in a place that is not inclusive, then we need to figure out what's the next step and move on if we don't have a choice.
Right. Tell me some tips that you give your clients when they find themselves in these positions. Do you have tips that you offer right off the bat when they're in a position of maybe not being as appreciated?
Well, first of all, you really need to appreciate yourself. You need to really realize what are you good at? What are your contributions? You need to really appreciate yourself because a lot of times we don't appreciate ourselves enough. How can we expect others to? So that's like step 0. Like we have to appreciate ourselves and realize that there's more to us than we can do. Then coming up to the company and to the manager, HR, whoever in the support system, and really figure out what's the path for me, what I can do to get to the next level. Broadcasting about career aspirations, what they want to get to, and asking for directions of what they are missing in order to get to the next level and a concrete plan. If they don't get the support they need and they realize that they are basically hitting a wall, then I would advise them to start looking elsewhere. But before that, they have to do the inner work and then try to work with their employer to change things.
And start seeing what else is out there. And that's maybe where they come to you for help as far as LinkedIn profiles, resume writing, whatever it may be.
Yeah, LinkedIn is something that I constantly work on. And I usually advise people not just to work on LinkedIn when they're looking for a job, but constantly be there. I know it's time consuming, but that's your marketing collateral. That's where people see you. And I was able to switch jobs without even looking for a job. Both VMware and DigitalOcean found me because I had a stellar profile and I was active. And that's really the best approach. But I realized that not always people have time for that. It's time consuming. So definitely work on your profile and make sure it represents you the way you want to be represented. that is matching where you want to go, not what you do right now.
Oh, that's interesting. Think about what the next step is and be broadcasting that on there.
Yeah, because what happens to most people, their profile just present what they do today and not what they want to do. And usually when I work with people on their profile, I advise them to start looking for, okay, what kind of change they want to make, what is missing, what they already have, and start emphasizing the different skills that they have that are relevant for positions they're interested to, highlighting those keywords in their profile, and try to be more strategic about it instead of just presenting what they do today.
I don't think a lot of people think of it like that, but it really should be like an ongoing digital resume, if you will, of like what your skills are. And LinkedIn is a funny thing because you can get so many people just requesting you that you have no idea who they are. Do you feel like you should be present in maybe even a few minutes a day, engaging, accepting people, reaching out to people, be a little bit active, even if it's just a few minutes a day?
Definitely, that's a preferable route, in my opinion. First of all, my approach is to connect to people you don't know. I know it's not always people feel comfortable with that, but that's my approach. And definitely be there. The good news is that today, everyone can post content, everyone can showcase their knowledge. You can go live, you can write a newsletter, you can write posts and articles. So I think that's the best, probably. To be honest, I'm not always as active as I would like to be on LinkedIn just because of time. But yes, be there. Be there, showcase yourself. And I've seen that happening to others. You know, just by changing their profile, they got approached by companies.
Wow.
So definitely, it's really impactful.
If listeners are wanting to reach out to you for your services, what can you provide them?
If people have a clear idea of what they want and they need a LinkedIn profile that will represent them well, I can definitely do that. I can also help them figure out what they want and get more focused, because a lot of times people are not exactly sure what's the next step for them. So I can definitely help them figure that out with my coaching services. And it can be a combination. Depends really on the individual and what they need. I feel like I bring the most value to women in tech. I bring also value to women in other fields because I have so much experience in the tech industry. I bring that extra value.
And you've been through it. You had a successful career. Now you're here mentoring these women who are in the field. So maybe if they feel a little out of place because they're the only woman in their office, or, you know, they have questions and they want to network with other women, you're someone that's a great resource to reach out to.
Definitely.
All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. Name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
Resilience, first of all. I made a lot of changes. So definitely change is a good thing. It builds a character. It builds your courage. And I strongly believe in doing uncomfortable things. Always be uncomfortable to a certain degree. That's how you grow.
Would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change to your best friend?
It depends. If she's unhappy or she feels like she's not in the right place, definitely. Also depends obviously on financial circumstances, right? I mean, I wouldn't recommend it if there's hardship and struggle and, you know, the money is something they really need to survive. It really depends.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is starting their second act today?
Believe in yourself and find the support you need. Find a support group. Find like-minded people that you can connect to and get support from. Support each other.
So what does the next chapter look like for you, Limor?
I don't know all the answers, right? I mean, there's a little bit of uncertainty, and that's good. I like that because it excites me. So I want to reach more and more women, and I also want to reach organizations and help them become inclusive and support women in their organization. Because there I can feel I can make a larger impact rather than just one-on-one.
That's a great path for you. I love that. So where can our audience connect with you?
Definitely LinkedIn and also on my website, Limor Bergman. So definitely on both.
Fantastic. This was so helpful, and I'm so impressed with your journey. And I wish you the best of luck with all of your endeavors in helping women in tech and women in general. Thank you so much, Limor.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's been a pleasure being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for all of this advice and for leading by example, Limor. What you are doing to help women grow in corporate careers is admirable, and I applaud you. I will include more on Limor and her work in the show notes for this episode. Before I let you go, I want to remind you that if you have a question about advancing your career or changing to a new one completely, you can apply to be a guest on an upcoming episode during my Career Shift Strategy sessions right here on the podcast. Just DM me on Instagram at Second Act Success or email hello@secondactsuccess.co. Well, we have come to the end of our time together today, my friend. Can't wait to hang out again on the next episode of the Second Act Success podcast. Take care. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to Second Act Success. To view show notes from this episode, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.